When we first learn about technology integration in the classroom, one of the first models or frameworks that we are often introduced to is the SAMR Framework, made by Ruben Puntadora. SAMR is an amazing framework because it allows us to talk about any technology used in the classroom, no matter what it is, no matter what content area we're looking at. So that's a powerful model that we can apply to technology integration across the framework. SAMR is great because it lets us talk about the technology use that we're seeing in front of us. It gives us a language for commonly talking about what it is that's happening in the classroom. The other reason that SAMR is incredibly powerful, though, is it also allows the end user, the person who's making choices about how that technology is being used, to grow through the framework. It allows us to understand our tech comfort and see where we are in the framework and how we're growing. Let's give you a common example that's non-educationally related, but showcases how we can see both the use and the comfort of the user as they make choices about how to use the technology. In this example, let's talk about a grandmother named Nora. Nora has a red rotary phone at her home that she has used for decades to make phone calls to family and friends. She understands how her rotary phone works, it's reliable, and she really has no need to change it. However, one day her hipster granddaughter comes in and sees her red rotary phone and just has to have it. And so she offers to exchange with Nora her new cell phone for the red rotary phone. Nora, in order to make her granddaughter happy, decides to make that trade. Now, Nora is the owner of a fancy new cell phone that she knows very little about. And the first question she asks her granddaughter is, how do I turn it on? Followed up with, how do I call you on it? How do I call my friends? These are things that Nora is beginning to ask questions about because the technology is new to her. If we were to look at the SAMR framework and try to understand where Nora is in the SAMR framework as she adopts this new cell phone technology, Nora is solidly living in substitution. She's looking at the technology, it's acting as a direct substitute for what she previously used, her red rotary phone, and it's really not offering Nora any functional improvement, and if anything, it's probably creating more confusion for her. So Nora's in the substitution phase. As Nora learns a little bit more about the technology, though, she begins to understand what's possible with it. She hears from another grandchild about this texting idea, and so she asks some questions and learns a little bit more about it. At this point, Nora realizes that she can text with another grandchild, exchanging ideas with them, connecting with them in a way that she could not before. This grandchild would rarely pick up the phone when Nora called, but will respond right away when she talks to them via text. Nora also thinks it's fun that she can send pictures, emojis, even voice memos to her grandchild. She doesn't love that she can't connect with all of her friends this way, but she knows that this one grandchild she can connect with in a way that really wasn't possible before. And so let's talk about where Nora is on the SAMR framework. At this point, as Nora learns more about the technology in her hands, she lives in the augmentation phase. She still primarily is using it as a direct substitute, a way to communicate with another person, but she's getting a functional improvement. She's more reliably communicating with some people while being able to still make her phone calls to everybody else. She's also figuring out how to send emojis, get pictures, and she's starting to like what that is offering for her. Now, Nora continues on her journey. She still primarily uses her cell phone for a lot of phone calls and a little bit of texting. it hasn't really broadly changed her world. But she begins to realize that as she moves about her house, she can actually talk to somebody from anywhere in her home. One day she's out on the back patio, her cell phone rings, and she realizes she can talk to somebody from anywhere in her home, even outside of her home. Nora really likes to move around the neighborhood. So what Nora begins to understand and see is that the farther she moves from her home, she can still use her cell phone to make phone calls. As Nora begins to understand this, she starts doing some basic testing. And she realizes that no matter where she is, she can still make her audio calls and send her text messages to her family and friends. Nora begins to move around the community, and she starts taking her phone to the park, to the store, in the car with her, and she understands something different about the cell phone that was never possible with her rotary phone. So let's take a look at where Nora is on the SAMR Framework. Nora now has moved from an enhancement of technology, which is substitution and augmentation. She has moved up to transformation. Laura is now in the modification stage. And as Nora learns how to move about with the technology she has, she realizes that she can do things that she couldn't do before. She can go places. She maybe learns how to use the mapping features on her phone, and she begins to become more confident with the technology that's in front of her. Her life has been, in effect, redesigned by her new confidence with the technology. She can talk to family and friends anywhere. When she gets lost, she can make phone calls. The technology has allowed her to shift how she lives, and that is why it falls solidly into modification and transformation. Nora doesn't live near her family, though. And one of the things she most longs for is the ability to see them, to talk with them. But it's just not possible to see her grandchildren as often as she'd like. Then one day, she gets a different icon popping up on her phone. And she realizes when she answers it that she can now see her family using something like FaceTime or Zoom or any of the video calling options that exist. Nora loves this new functionality. She now can truly have meaningful face-to-face conversations with her family who live far away, anytime she likes. And that's really good for Laura, and she feels good about it. So, let's talk about where Nora falls using a tool like FaceTime on her phone. Nora now lives solidly in redefinition. Tasks that she could never have dreamed of before are now possible through the technology that she uses. She could have never imagined that she would have seen her grandchildren, friends, family on her rotary phone. But now, because of the cell phone that she has, she can see them, she can interact with them, she can feel connected to them in a different way. And that's where the technology allows for something that was never possible before. So as you can see through our example of Nora, the technology lets us move up the SAMR framework by changing what's possible and how we move about the normal tasks in our lives. The beauty of the SAMR framework is it allows for the technology that's in front of us to be discussed in an even plane no matter what it is and how it's being used, but it also lets us think about the person who's using that technology. If we think about Nora, on day one, when she was receiving her new cell phone from her granddaughter, she was in the substitution phase. If her granddaughter had started by telling her all about how she can see her grandchildren and she can go all over the community, putting her in modification and redefinition, Nora very likely would have been overwhelmed and decided she just didn't want to be involved. But if we think about it from the lens of Nora moving up from substitution, what she always did, to what she can do with just a little bit of texting and a little bit of connection, And then realizing that she truly is mobile, that she can connect with anybody anywhere, live a more freeing life, not wait at home for a phone call to come in. And then realizing that she can make personal connections with her family anytime, anywhere, and see her grandchildren effectively in person through FaceTime. Nora's able to move up the SAMR framework and also doing it naturally at her own pace when she's ready to learn these things to achieve great outcomes for her as she adopts the technology. And that's why the SAMR framework is incredibly powerful when we talk about the role that technology plays in the classroom and also where an individual educator is in their adoption and comfort with the technology as they learn to use it.